all well. I hope that you're all thriving. Hello to America's beautiful children. We love you. And so, it was a wonderful weekend, very intriguing, a lot of stuff happening, a lot of action we see all around us. But, we had to stay focused on the whole goal of making sure that our children thrive. And so today I wanted to talk about cease and desist orders. Why? Because a lot of times through civil discourse, you're trying to collaborate, you're trying to communicate, but there are some bad actors that do not do that very well. And so in order to get someone to stop an activity and stop a certain type of activity, then sometimes you do have to issue a cease and desist order. My whole goal is to put power back in your hands and help you understand how to navigate through policy, how to navigate through legislation, and how to activate your rights and your voices. And so today I'm going to be walking you through cease and desist, why sometimes it's necessary, and how to make that happen and how you can do that on your own. So let's start with just breaking down a basic definition of what cease and desist means, right? And so if we were to, and I'm going to share my screen. All right. So if we were to look up cease and desist, okay, you get a whole bunch of definitions. Of course, they're going to have Oxford definitions, Wikipedia, Investopedia, I love it, and just showing you what that means. What does that mean? And so just breaking that down, when we're talking about cease and desist, that means denoting a legally enforceable order from a court or government agency directing someone to stop engaging in a particular activity, denoting a cautionary notice detailing the sender, that would be us, sender's complaint of alleged wrongdoing by the recipient, and threatening legal action if the offending activity is not stopped, okay? So when you're thinking about some things that have taken place, and you find that people may be slandering you, maybe you have been harassed in some situations. There are bad actors that will talk about you and your children in the educational environment. That is unacceptable types of behavior and activity, and you do not have to put up with it. You can give a verbal warning and ask for them to stop. You can give a written notification asking them to stop that type of behavior, but then eventually you may have to move into what we call an official and formal cease and desist notification. So I'm going to show you, let me stop sharing my screen. What it is intended, again, is to stop that bad behavior, stop that action, and ask for a formal resolve. Okay, so let me share my screen, and I'm going to share some samples with you to move this. Okay, so here was a cease and desist notification, and I've written several of these. Not very difficult if you know how to do it and what you're doing. And you know what? I have to say that when you're doing these types of things, it's really like you don't want to, but sometimes you have to. And the more that you are able to practice, the more that you will understand, okay? Here, we had some action, and it was basically by a public official and also a public figure. And so depending on the laws regarding slander, libel, and harassment in your area, you're going to want to know what those are. Here is a use of a cease and desist. Right here, you're going to put the date, right? Make sure you put the date. Right here, you're going to put the name and affiliation of the persons you're addressing to stop a particular action. Okay, here it is. It shows regarding cease and desist, libel, slander, and defamation of character activity. Well, what was happening? This person was publicly talking really bad about parents. And so we issued cease and desist, okay? Parents did, right? Now, in the beginning, just to reiterate, that it was illegal activity, and it was activity that was not interpreted by the law as something positive, as something that could have consequences. We put what it was, the Revised Judicature Act, okay? And we put the number and where they could find that section in the law. And then we went to talk about actions against libel or slander. So that means enforceable consequences for libel and slander or defamation of character. You would need to do a search in your area as what constitutes libel, slander, defamation of character, and what type of consequences could be given according to those acts. So we put that in the letter. And we also delineated what a purpose, limited purpose public figure is, right? So outside of this person being a elected official, public official, they were also considered a limited purpose public figure. That could be someone that is a community leader, that is, you know, dealing with the public trust and the public good, okay? And then we just begin to talk about what it was. So if you believe that you have been slandered, defamed your character, you know, by someone's comments, and they've continued to do them even though you've sought remedy, then you issue the cease and desist order asking them to stop. But you need to be ready to offer your process or escalation of what you're going to do if they do not stop. So that would be civil and criminal claims, right? In your area, who is in charge of ensuring that these things don't happen? Okay, you need to find out who that is. Can you file a report? What can you do? Civil claims would be like a civil tort, right? It would be, I am going to sue you for defamation of character, and you have to show that you've been harmed in some kind of way by these activities. How have they harmed you? How have they impacted your life? How has that defamation of character, you know, brought a negative impact in your life, right? And because this person was a school board member, recall of the position, investigation and inquiry into their leadership role, right? And so this was something that was a part of an escalation process of asking the person to stop. And when they did not stop, we issued a formal cease and desist notification. Anybody can do this. It's not something that, you know, is really complicated if you understand what are the laws regarding harassment, what are the laws regarding slander, libel. You can look it up and you just put it in there and you ask the person formally to stop. You need to be prepared, again, as I stated, that if they do not stop, you have some type of consequences according to the law that you find, some type of consequences. Civilly pursuing a lawsuit sometimes has to happen to get people to stop, and also some type of consequences criminally, sometimes that also has to take place. Stop sharing, again, cease and desist orders are a part of an escalation process that we issue when we've asked someone to stop a certain action and they have not done that, a certain activity. So I'm sharing the process and how to do that right here. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. That was an example. Here is another example, right? Okay, sometimes you have to issue a cease and desist order when you feel like you're being, or can prove that you're being profiled, discriminated, harassed, stalked, right? This is the harsh reality. I hate that it has to happen, but I'm going to show you how to activate your rights and ask a person formally or an entity to stop a certain activity. So here you would put your name, okay, your address, okay. If you have more minor children that are also involved in the action that you're asking someone to stop, or the activity that you're trying to get people to stop, you're going to put your name, and under that, care of minor children, CO, in care of minor children. Right here is where you are going to put the addressees, right? Who is doing the action? Who is doing the action that you want to stop? Sometimes it's several people within, you know, a certain organization. Say, for instance, you feel like you're being harassed, stalked, profiled, discriminated against by your management company. Let's just say that, right? You're going to put that in there, and whoever their affiliations are, like whoever is their partners, right? So it would say them et al, or you can list them and the owners. So if it's a management company, you're going to put them and the owners. That way you're giving a notice to all of them. You're going to put the date. You're going to put cease and desist the activity. So what is the activity? Find out if there's a consequence in the law for it and ask them to stop. Is there a consequence for stalking? Yes. Is there a consequence for harassment? Yes, legally. Is there a consequence for profiling? Yes, there could be civilly, right? Is there a consequence for discrimination? Yes, right? So you're going to put cease and desist, whatever the activity is. Dear, who is it, right? So here's the body of this. This cease and desist order is to inform you that your persistent actions, including but not limited to, and you're going to put the actions. Here's an example. Weekly and bi-weekly calling, creating false narratives, watching me and my minor children, making me and my minor children feel uncomfortable. Whatever those actions are, intimidation, bullying, harassment, unfair treatment, unequal practices, inflated complaints, right? You're going to put what those things are. This person, they became unbearable. State that. You are ordered to stop, and you can put immediately such activities immediately as they are being done in violation of the law. If you want to add the laws in that they're violating, add them, but you're asking them to stop, formally asking them to stop their activity and move in a different direction, okay? I have the right to remain free from these activities as they constitute, put what it constitutes, harassment, stalking, discrimination. Put what you're prepared to do. I will pursue any legal remedies available to me against you personally and corporately if these activities continue, right? You want to make sure that you delineate what the activities are, what they're causing you and your family, and what could happen if they continue. Okay, and you could put these remedies include, but are not limited to, contacting law enforcement to obtain criminal sanction, suing you civilly for damages that I've incurred as a result of your action, and pursuing federal remedies if you are acting against federally disabled and protected citizens. That may not be you, right? That may be you, that may be your children, right? Just consider everything. This is just an example of a cease and desist order for harassment, stalking, profiling. Unfortunately, these things happen. We hope that they don't. You can sometimes ask for them to stop and they continue and they impact your life. And so the cease and desist is a formal notification and way to ask someone to stop a certain activity before you pursue a consequence, okay? A legal and civil consequence. And you can put that, this is your final chance to cease your illegal activities before I exercise my rights to whatever they may be. Respectfully, put your names. Talking about you and your minor children, put in care of my minor children, and you can list them. So let me just stop that. And I'm going to pause to check the comments just in case anyone has a comment. So when I'm looking down, I'm really checking to make sure that I stay in tune with commenting so that I can answer questions as they come along. I see that Demetrius says hi. Hi, Demetrius. And so, you know, just here to really help you understand and activate and exercise your rights, cease and desist, what we're talking about today, making sure that you understand that particular activities are seen as illegal and harmful. You do not have to accept those activities. When you ask someone to stop doing something and they continue to do it, you need to be willing and positioned to formally notify them that they need to stop through a cease and desist order. And you also need to be prepared to seek remedy, perhaps civilly or criminally, as far as a consequence if they do not stop. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen in order to show you the next sample. And anyone that, you know, feels like this is a lot and you need some samples or examples, you can type into your chat cease and desist order sample or an example, or if you need help finding the law regarding harassment, defamation of character, slander, libel, you know, profiling, bullying. You cannot bully and intimidate people just because you feel like it, right? You know, then you can definitely reach out and I'll help you, Christina at mpunion.org, especially if you feel like you've been bullied, harassed, intimidated by educators, administrators within the public education institution. Definitely reach out. That is not acceptable behavior. They do not have the right to violate you in that way. They do not have the right to defame, slander you because you're advocating on behalf of your children. They do not have the right to slander, defame the character of your children because you are advocating for them either, or anyone in your household. They do not have that right. What they should be pursuing instead is appropriate and proper behavior and activity that is free from intimidation, bullying, harassing, defamation, or slander. But oftentimes we see that that is not the case. So the cease and desist order is meant to help them alter that negative activity, change that negative activity, and pursue meaningful collaboration, respected and valued collaboration. But you need to be willing to escalate it if it does not stop. Okay, so that one. Here is another one. Okay, this one you can see, and I showed you 3 different types of cease and desist orders or notifications issued by everyday folks just like us. I've issued several of them, no problem. So here's another one. You would put your name, your address, right? Persons notified here, the date, and put what it's regarding or who it's regarding right there. Put the name. Et al means all persons involved, right? But not limited to. List persons here. Sorry, I put a lowercase s. Now, this particular cease and desist notification or order was issued on behalf of a special education student that was receiving harsh exclusionary punishments, even though they should not have been, because the behaviors that they were manifesting were according to their disability, right? And so what this cease and desist order did was inform them that their persistent actions, including but not limited to, including without limiting the generality of the foregoing, non-appropriate behavioral interventions, stop them, right? Knowledge of excessive harsh punishment, emotional distress, and emotional vanquish, stop that, right? You cannot emotionally vanquish people, children, that you're entrusted to educate, right? Exclusionary and punitive discipline practices, right? If they have been violating your idea and faith rights, list that. If you had a settlement agreement previously because they violated your IEP, list that. Say that they're violating, that's what SA means, they're violating your settlement agreement, okay? They're violating your child's idea and faith, right? Under special education, okay? And they're punishing them for maladaptive behaviors based on the disability of the students, And do you have a positive behavior support plan? If so, they're violating that if they're excessively, harshly punishing, emotionally distressing, and emotionally vanquishing your child. You need to put, they need to stop, okay? Are there education codes that they're violating? List them. Federal and state violations, according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, right? List it, right? Federal and state Civil Rights Act, are they violating that? List it. Stop doing that. You do not have a right to do that, but sometimes you have to remind people and entities, institutions, through a formal process, which is this, the cease and desist order, that they do not have a right to do these things. Put that they are inappropriate, unbearable, and harmful, right? You are ordered to stop such activities immediately, okay? Name the person right here. Say that if it's your child, that person, your child has the right to remain free from those activities as they constitute punitive harm. People that are saying, well, I wasn't the one that did it, but have knowledge of them, see if there's a bystander law in your state, right? You can't be an innocent bystander watching someone inflict punitive, exclusionary, harsh punishment practices on a child. Include them. Negligence. That doesn't mean you have the right to harm someone, right? Negligent and or bystander infliction of emotional distress on a disabled student. Put what you're willing to do. Are you willing to pursue any and all legal remedies available to you? Yes, you are. Put that. And you can also put in these remedies not limited to, also including without limiting the generality of the foregoing. I try to make sure that I am very precise and that I'm including everything within my ability to activate my rights. So that's why you see that sentence in there. Suing you civilly for damages incurred as a result of your action, non-intervention, and knowledge of incidents. Why? Because there's no innocent bystanders that are just sitting back and just not saying anything when it comes to children. Again, you must immediately stop. Okay, make sure you put that order to stop. You see that that's throughout the letter, right? So this particular notice was a notice for a special education student whose rights were being violated, and they were continuing to receive exclusionary, harsh, excessive punishment that emotionally distressed and vanquished them. And this can be issued to the educational institution, the traditional public school, whatever it may be, to ask them to immediately stop. You want to close with this letter acts as your final warning to discontinue this unwanted contact before I pursue legal actions against you. So those are examples of what you can do. Here is a LegalZoom has some easy to read things that really break down the process for you. I will come back and put that in the chat. What you can do is look it up. They sometimes have forms and things like that that show you an example. I create my own, but for people that are having to go through this process and don't really understand how to do it, here is a useful tool, and it is useful. Okay, so the 4 most common ways to use a cease and desist order, right? And it tells you exactly what I told you in the beginning. A cease and desist letter can be a useful tool. Here's how to stand up. Here's how to use one to stand up for yourself when someone is acting towards you in a harmful way. Okay, now typically people are not going to be issuing a cease and desist order until they've exhausted all other forms of trying to get that person to stop acting harmfully. I am one to give them right away when I notice a pattern of harmful activity, because I realize that it's just going to continue to escalate. And so in order to make sure that I activate my rights right away and ensure that the person understands that I'm going to continue to activate my rights, I am going to issue that right away when I notice a pattern of behavior and activity that is harmful and that is going in the wrong direction. Here you can look at LegalZoom's article. I will put it in the chat. What is a cease and desist order for? Letter 4, right? It tells you that it might stop. So when you see that it might stop the recipient from continuing their harmful action, that is what I mean by you have to be prepared to escalate this into a different realm if they do not stop. Those consequences delineated in that letter, civil, criminal, whatever they may be, you need to make sure that you specify that you are willing to escalate the process if they do not stop. Okay. Common uses. It gives you the 4 common uses, right? Infringement of intellectual property, right? Debt collection. If you're being subjected to nonstop calls from a debt collector service, a cease and desist letter is an effective tool for getting them to stop harassing you. We talked about harassment. People cannot just harass you because they feel like it, right? Here they're showing you there's a Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. You can definitely look that up. One of the major things that I was just discussing is defamation. Slander, libel are defamation. You know, there are acts, laws in your state that prevent this type of activity. When someone spreads rumors about you that are untrue, right? You or your business can suffer serious irreparable harm, which is a fact. You have to live in the community. If you find that on public spaces, you have educators just like really slandering and libeling you, that is totally inappropriate activity. You need to issue a cease and desist letter telling them to stop. Okay. Harassment, I talked about that. So this pretty much sums up the sample cease and desist letters that I've already showed you. I'm going to put this in the chat again. If you have any questions regarding how to activate your rights through cease and desist letters, how to make a person stop inappropriate, illegal activity, such as slander and libel, defamation of character, harassment. It even showed you the example about the bill collectors, debt collectors. You know, you want to be free and have your life free from these type of intrusive, harmful activities. So I hope that that helps. If you have any questions, always reach out to me, Christina at mpunion.org. Remember, every family votes. I got my ballot and shipped it off, and I'm tracking it. I have the ability to track my mail-in ballot here in California. I don't know if you have that ability, but if you do, definitely you know, get those notifications so that you can know where your ballot is, if it's going to make it on time, and all of that wonderful stuff that we consider civic engagement, and just being involved in that way of understanding what your rights are, how to utilize them, how to activate them. I'm just here to put power back in your actual hands. Hope you guys all do well today, all week. I just hope you do well. I hope that you thrive, and goodbye to America's beautiful children. We love you, and we will see you again on Thursday when I have an amazing guest. Bye-bye. Take care.